Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our next monthly webinar here at Oasis. This month of November, we're going to be tackling the Opera 3 hints, tips, and tricks. These apply to all versions of Opera 3, although I'll be using one of the versions, but it will apply to all the versions of Opera 3 that you guys might be using. I try to make the tips and tricks mix and match of payroll and accounts side, but a lot of the functionality I'll show will affect both the systems. So my name is Bruce, Bruce Kidd. As you guys know, I'm the sales marketing director here at Oasis, and I try and give information on a monthly basis with these webinars that we do. No more introductions really necessary. I think most of you know me and know Oasis and know what we do. So I think without further ado, let's crack on and look at these hints, tips, tricks. I've got about 28 or so to kind of go through for you. And like I said, I am recording this, so you will get a recording afterwards that you can run through if you need to. So first hint, tip, trick, however, whatever we're going to call it, is how to create your own favorites menu, how to run that, how to manage that. And to say that you could even have shortcuts to things like Chrome or Edge that you run there from your system. The second one we are going to look at very briefly are preferences. And these are preferences that relates to you as the user, whoever you are logged into the system. The settings you change here only affect you. It doesn't affect any of the other users of your system. So this is really to personalize how you want to use the system, because everybody wants to use it different. At this point, I think after each slide, I will pop back into Opera and we will have a look at the two things that I've shown. So firstly, our favorites menu. As you can see, I've got a favorites menu here, and I've already got a whole host of items in my favorites menu. How do I place something in the favorites menu? Very easy. Let's be looking at our payroll site today. So if I go into payroll here and I go into the HMRC online services, and let's say on a monthly basis, weekly basis, I need to run the data provisioning service download. So this information is downloaded from HMRC to update things like our tax codes when it starts, etc. If I right click on any of these items, I can add it to my favorites menu. My favorites menu pops up. It groups it for me by payroll. You can see there are different areas I can group it to, but this is payroll, and I can actually overwrite the name and I can make it something that's going to be more memorable to me when I want to run it. And if I say OK to that, now that item would have appeared here in my payroll menu as a DPS, and all I have to do is run it from there. I don't have to go and faff around to find it. So you can see the idea is I can build my favorites up in order of how I want to run my system, and I can only ever come in there basically and run my information like that. So I've got a calculation here, for example, for my payroll. Next, I'm doing a transfer, perhaps pay slips, the backs list, the FPS. Then I can do the NL analysis. Then I can update it. Then I can do the EPS, and then I can do the DPS before I start the next period to see if there was any new downloads, for example. Now, when I place these items in my favorites, they go in order of how I put them in. But what if I want to change the order of how I do things? So here in our ribbon bar at the top, you've got that little area, and if you don't know by now, this little area allows you to change the order of the modules as you see them at the top. So I can just change these up and down, move them up and down, and then those modules will change in the order I put them in. But what I really want to show you is in the action button, you can order your favorites, and in here you can now go, for example, to your payroll, and you can take that DPS and you can stick it in the front, or you can say I want to have payroll in the second space, etc., etc., and you can move your information around here. When you say OK to that and you close the information, it doesn't change immediately, because with these things you have to re-log on to the system, and then those changes take place to where you've put the new order of things. And let's just give that a half a second to log in, and then we'll have a look at that. Go back to my favorites. Now you will see payroll is in second place, DPS is in third position. So you can really build up your favorites to run the system the way you want to run it. The second thing on our slide was our user preferences. So every single user should have access here in administration to this area called preferences. If I open those preferences, it gives me a whole host of information that relates to me running this system. For example, when I log into the system as manager, what's the first company I want the system to go into? Well, mine just goes into company Z at this point in time. A whole bunch of things here like accelerator key toolbar. Now, if that is on, you will notice this accelerator floating window around the system. Whenever you open a window, it will give you some F keys, which is shortcuts you can use for accessing information in the system. The gray and white grid is when you look at information on a grid in Opera, the grid is gray and next line is white so that you can see the information easier. Extended searching means it searches more than just from the start of the records. For example, menu style, toolbar style, etc., etc. You can also change your password here, and you can use Opera Desktop. So what's Opera Desktop? It means when you log into the system and you've got a website put in there, for example, when you then save that information, and the next time you log into the system, in this square space here, the Oasis website will appear, and it will sit there. You can close it, of course, but it will sit there so you can access the website. And this is for anything. So you might want a supplier account open where you have to place orders on, or whatever it is. So you can have a different set of accounts sitting in there. And this is all relating to personal preferences that each user have access to run the system the way they want to run it. Well, back to our presentation. So our third thing is contacts for customers and suppliers. For those of you who don't have CRM, I mean, when you will look at your processing screens in sales and suppliers and purchase, you will always notice that there are two contacts on the front screen, one for account and one for order. And sometimes you think that's the only two contacts you can have on the account. Not true. Within the action button, you can access contacts. You can have more than one contact that you can set on the system. Only one account contact, only one order contact, but you can have as many other contacts in that system as you need. Processing keyboard shortcuts. Now, this is an area that, I mean, not everybody perhaps wants to know, but did you know you can use the whole system without ever having to touch the mouse, from login to accessing your windows using the underlined information within the system? I will show you that in the system. And also the accelerator keys shows you which F keys you can use to access the information that sits in the action button without having to click on it and open it that way. And I'm also going to show you how to check your current payroll period or periods for all your different payrolls, just as a bit of a reminder how we do that, because there's two places we can do that. One just shows us the period, and the other one also shows us the start and end dates of the period. Let's pop to Opera and have a quick look at these three things. So when we look at our contacts in our sales processing screen, as well as in our purchase processing screen, let's go to that one there. We've got contacts here on the front screen, and in this instance we've got account and order contacts. Well, you know we have them because if you email information, you need to have that in there so it can pick up the information up from here when it emails invoices and statements out. And the same on the purchasing side. So I've got my account and order contacts that we use in there. Within my action button, I can access contacts, and I will see the contacts that's set up on the front screen. I will see them there, but I can create any new contacts I want in here. That I want to go in there. Let's make this our order contact. Let's save that record. Let's close that. And now you will see that information sits here, and it put the information in the front of the screen. This, of course, follows through to my supply chain if you use that. And if you look at the account in supply chain, which I don't have that specific one, the information matches what you see on the front screen in the supply chain. Like here. The account and order email addresses pulls through from here. That is also updated if you update the information here. If we look at the sales account here as the contacts, you can see I've got so much more contacts set up in here, not just the two that sits on the front screen, but I can look at the ones on the front screen, like James, for example, who I can see as my account contact. I can change into the other contact, save him, and I can decide that Jenny Adams should be my account contact. Save that. If I close that, that information immediately changes around for me, and it does the right information. As for the keyboard shortcuts, as you can see on the screen, some of my, and I'm using the mouse to show you this, which is quite ironic, but some information you'll see a line underneath it, and when you see a line underneath, you can use the Alt key with that letter, and it opens up. And let me move this mouse away so that we don't use it, and you should see it there. You can use the Alt key with what is underlined, and use the arrow keys to go up and down, left and right if you need to. For example, view, right arrow key, and from here you can use the F12 key, or you can use enter, or you can go up and down and can use the enter key, and you can access whatever you want to access from there. If you look at the screen, you can use the Alt C to close it. And from here, you can again use the Alt C to close the screen, and the same there. If I now want to access, for example, my payroll and HR, if I press the Alt key, you will notice little lines appear at the top there. I can go the Alt key, press R, and I access my payroll, and then I can use my arrow keys left and right to access any of the information I want to do here. If it's payroll, for example, and I want to run a calculation on my 2 weekly, I can just use my enter key there to put a yes in. I can use the Alt O to say okay to that. I can use the Alt O to say okay to that. I can use the enter key there. So you can see you can really run the information here. You can use your arrow keys up and down here to run different styles of report, move between printer, file, email, whatever you want to do. If you publish a report, it's calculated that for me. I can use the escape key to come out of the report, and this relates to all over the system. So just quite a nice way to use it. Also, when you log on to the system, I know it's not much, but did you know you can put your username in, press the enter key, put your password in, press the enter key twice, and it will log you in. You don't have to use the mouse to go between those screens on log on, for example. So logging on can become real quick as well. That covers the keyboard shortcuts. How to check our current payroll? I said to you guys there are 2 ways to do that. So in our payroll utilities, we've got pay periods here at the bottom. If I open that, it represents all the groups I have in my payroll. Let's have a quick look at our monthly group. Say okay to that. It will tell me what the last time is I calculated, and if I've updated that calculation period, I've moved into the next period, and it will tell me this open period I am in. This is for my payroll, monthly payroll. I'm on period 8 at the moment, which is November month. I haven't finished the November on this payroll. At the same time, in utilities, I also have a calendar. And in the calendar, again, represents my groups. If I say okay to that, I will see the period 8 as not being updated. Here at the end, you can see there's no tick box. There's no actual pay date. I haven't done any of the calculations, really. I've not done any of the work on the period yet. So this is my open period, the one I need to deal with at current stage. Exactly the same for if I look at my weekly groups. So if I look at week, for example, I will see where I'm at in my week 34. And in my calendar, if I look at the weekly one, again, I will see I'm in week 34. I've done some calculation here because we've done it earlier on, if you remember, using the shortcuts. And therefore, there's an actual pay date in there because that's the calculation that said that for me. And it's not been updated yet, so I've not done any of the work yet. So that's how you can see what your current payroll period is. Let's pop back to a presentation. So a couple of things, 2 things here for payroll. And how do I put the whole company on holiday? Well, that is something that I will show you, but this is the functionality where you can allow the whole company to go on holiday, therefore negating the need to run separate period calculations in that time. If you have weekly payroll group, for example, you put the company on 2 weeks holiday, you run your calculation, it will move its calculation period on by 2, do the right thing with the tax and NI calculations and every holiday average reporting, and move it on so that when you're back in the office again and you do your calculation, you're at the right period and you don't have to catch up or do some kind of weird empty period in the meantime. I'm going to show you the holiday pay average for weekly groups and just how to apply that as the standard functionality in Opera. So firstly, all pay elements, you would have noticed by now, there's something called holidayable on there. We need to make sure that it's ticked on for that pay element to be part of the holiday average reporting. When you put someone on holiday, then one of your weekly people, you can put them on a week holiday. You can put them on a day, 2, 3, 4 days holiday for the system to automatically calculate what the average pay was over the last 52 periods. If it's a weekly payroll, you have the ability here to overwrite some of the information. And here at the bottom, you can update it. And when you do, it calculates what that holiday pay is for you, what the hourly rate is, and it applies it to your F11 payment and deduction screen so that you can then just have to calculate that. So very quickly, how do we put the whole company on holiday within our action button? Utilities back to our pay periods. Let's go on our weekly group. I can put the weeks company holiday here, and if it's days, I can put it in there. But in this instance, the normal thing would be perhaps 2 weeks off over Christmas. So you would put the whole company on a 2-week holiday there, apply that, and when you then do your calculation, it will do the right thing and move your periods forward for you. Regarding the holiday pay calculation, let's go into one of our payroll employees and just show you how to apply that, because the system would have calculated that. I want to use Deborah O'Hara in this instance. If we just look at her payments and deductions screen for a minute, we will notice that the holiday fund is here being deducted at 12.07% of the eligible pay elements that sits on the front screen on a monthly basis. No calculation has been done this period, so there's no this period value that has been calculated yet. In the action button, we've got our holiday area, and in here I can put Deborah on holiday for a week or a day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever I want to do. Let's change Deborah here and put her on 3 days holiday. The moment I click on OK, the system knows that there is an average calculation relating the holiday pay for this employee. It shows me what the earnings were in the 52 periods before it has to calculate it for. It allows me to overwrite what I've just set there. If I want to make it a week, if I want to make it 3 days, if it's hourly, it shows me the values for that over there. And lastly, if I say I'm here to update weekly, daily, or hourly, it's just what it updates in the screen. I'm just going to say that. And then it might tell me something like this, because there's not been enough holiday pay for this person to have holiday pay in this instance, unlike the screen I showed you before. That wasn't supposed to happen, but unfortunately it did. Let's try someone else and just see if we could show you what happens. So okay to that? No. So what happens then is that we go back to Deborah's screen on the F11, and this is what would happen here. You would get, if it's a week's holiday at 4:58, it would put that information in there. In this lady's instance, I don't think there were enough available of the holiday for her to calculate, but my system is set not to go into a negative holiday. That could, of course, be, it could be different. But that's how you apply that to your employees. Next, let's move on a little bit to something accounting. I want to talk about journals. So did you know about recurring and reversing journals for nominal and why you would want to use them? What is a recurring journal? It's a journal that recurs every month at the same time for pretty much the same value. And therefore, you don't need to actually set it up and post it every month. If you set it as a recurring, it will be part of your recurring posting, and you can just run it on a monthly basis, and it will post all the recurring ones you've set up. Reversing is a journal that has been posted pre-period end, and when you run the period end, it reverses the journal. So it could be something like accruals and prepayments, for example. Automatically reverses that journal and obviously keeps an audit trail for you on that functionality. We've got a retained nominal journal. Well, what is a retained journal? A retained journal is a journal that you post once a month, perhaps for different value. However, it's never after a period and you don't want it to disappear from your list. Let's say, for example, a bank interest kind of journal. Every month a bank interest might be different, but you don't want to set the journal up from scratch every month. If you have it as retained, it will retain the journal in your journals list, and therefore you can just change the amount before you post it every month, not having to reset it all up. That's what you do with a retained journal. But in Cashbook, we also have recurring entries. So Did you know you can put recurring entries in cash book, whether these are payments, nominal payments, receipts? If there's a backs amount that comes in from a customer on a monthly basis, it could be a recurring entry that you post to the account through the cash book. And then there's a routine that you can run the recurring entries once a month or once a week or whenever they recur, so that you can post them in the system, and it will then do all the postings for you rather than you manually have to go and do all of them. So firstly, let's go back and we look at our journals. So if I open my journals, on here you will notice the tick boxes we've been talking about. So let's look at a period end accrual, for example. This is set as a recurring journal, but also as a reversing journal. So it means that I post this every month. I might change the amount every month, but it gets reversed every time I do a nominal period end, that is. Prepayments, pretty much the same kind of idea. Company credit card, this would be the idea of a retained journal, because every month the posting is different, but the idea of what I have to do is exactly the same. So I really don't have to reset up my debits and my credits, because they're pretty much the same every month, and I can just come and change amounts or add accounts to postings that should be added to that. Incidentally, you can post journals with that analysis on there if the system allows you to, in whichever circumstances they are, and that would update your VAT information as well. Now, these journals, if it is a recurring or journal, how do I post them? Now, let me just set my system date to the 30th of the month, because most of my recurring journals that I access in utilities, post recurring, is in here, and they set to the 30th of the month. So as you can see, I've got a period end accruals and the prepayments, the two we saw there, to post for November. Let's assume I've changed the amounts. I'm just going to say, yeah, I'm happy to post these. And I'm going to post those two journals. The system comes up and asks me for how I want to print them. I'm just going to publish that. Don't need to see the journals, but there the journals would now have been posted. And if I go to the journals and I look against them, I will see the last posting date to be the 11th month, for example. But this journal will now be reversed next month when I do my information. On the cash book, on the other hand, I have this ability to, against one of my bank accounts, to do action recurring. Recurring will show me any recurring cash book payments that is appearing on that bank account. I could also set new ones up, which could be any of the type of cash book types I have set up. If it's a sales receipt, for example, it will allow me to post that, put the information in, etc. And it will post that for me on a monthly basis when I access the recurring entries. How do I do that? Utilities, post recurring. It will pick up anything that there is available to be posted. This one was the due date was the 28th. I can say okay to that, say post the entry, and it would now go away and it would post that entry for me in my cash book and affect anything that it would have done if I'd manually posted it. It's just a quick way of those kind of postings that happen all the time that I can do. Let's go back to our presentation. I think one of the areas that should be used most in Opera that has quick, instant access to my data are the views. I'm going to show you the views in the sales module, how that might be used in the purchase module, how that might be used in the nominal side, how that could be used as well as in the payroll side. And just to see that they're pretty much the same, how you set them up, how you run them, and just using the criteria to get the specific information out that you want to see. And then I just want to remind you, when you look at any data in Opera that's in a grid format, you can use the copy data and drop that information in Excel. Let's go back to Opera. So in our financials sales, we've got a view screen here. I've set up a view here before. There's a sales account view. Let's click on refresh. No data found, perhaps because I've not really done anything in that period. But let's set my data back to 2020. Okay, click on refresh, and suddenly you can see this is giving me my data in an accounts format, as I asked there. If I want to see anything different, if I want to see it by my sales code, or it's going to give me analysis code and account, I can refresh that, and now I can see those two levels coming down. So first it shows me lease, then it shows me the accounts underneath it. But where it really gets useful is something like this. where I can have a view that I've built around the periods, for example. I've got months here. This gives me sales information for the month of November. That might be total sales, cost and margins, and lease information. I can come right down to the customer account level and look at the information that makes up the sales for that month. And as you know, if there are any PDFs that sit around it, I could even click down and it would show me the information from there. Where it becomes really powerful is here by our criteria, because I can do a little bit more, show information. If I want to just look at certain delivery accounts or certain products, for example, let's look at the Pepsi cans. Come back to our view, click on refresh, and this information now would give me all the sales across the board for all periods, just for the Pepsi cans. And at the bottom, it's the account that had bought it from. And again, it would show me the invoices that made up that information. So as you can see, very useful information. Here I want to show you the copy data very quickly, so you can use the copy data that you see there. You can drop it into Excel, and it will just drop the information, whatever you've got open in that screen. Obviously, all the grids in Opera work in the same way, so you'll be able to see that whether it's a different screen or not, doesn't make a difference. In the purchase view, we've got the same idea. I've set a couple of purchase views up here. This one goes really down to level. Let's just make that 2020, give it a bit more information. Refresh that, so it's a few years down here, and again you can see it's giving me this information based on that grid and how I do that. Now again, on the criteria, I can play with supplier codes and whatever I want to get at the information I want to get at. What I do want to mention at this point is within these modules, in the maintenance, you will see a views at the bottom, and that views is where you can come in and set the views and the levels you want to see. Very easy. You create a new view, give it a view code, give it your name. Default means that when you go into the views, it's going to be first one that pops up. And here you then have a bunch of information that you can build your view around. If you want to go just by month, for example, or year, whatever you want to do, you can come down here by month, and let's do a analysis go. Now let's look at the color, just like that. And when I access the views now, that view will be there. If I refresh it, it will show me what I wanted it to show me, the color. In the same way, in the nominal is more period driven, I suppose. Take it to wherever it is. It gives me all my nominal accounts here. I could have a view like this, for example, that gives me it per period. I could say I only want to see 1 year's worth of information per period. It gives me all my periods down here. I could come in the back. I could say I only want to see, well, I'm a salesman, so let's say I only want to look at the sales I have, which is based on my type. Come back to the front, refresh that. So now I can actually look and I can see period 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. Those were the sales I had. That's where the amounts. How was that made? Those sales made up, all the way down to how they were made up. Again, you can come and you can show much more information. I very often use this in our own system to compare periods like the first 3 months of the year for the last 5 years, for example, in sales, because if I then do that, it will then just show me the first 3 periods for each of the years, but I can then comparatively very quickly see how the information has gone up and down. And lastly, in the payroll, it's probably very useful as well to use the views, especially on our weekly payroll, but you can pull everything out at the same time. Again, this is very much date driven. You can select the periods, dates you want to look at in here, refresh your information, look at how the payments and deductions have been made up for that person. At the back here, you can range that through different payments. Just if you just want to look at payments, for example, and you just want to pull up certain, let's go with basic, for example, basic and overtime. can refresh the data and it will now just show basic and overtime for those periods. If you really want to hone in on a specific period for a year, you can do exactly the same in there. Again, this information can really easily be copied into Excel. What I do want to say about copy to Excel, if I look at something like the grids here at the bottom, I can right click on the value there, click on the copy data, and in the same way, I can then drop that into into Excel, and it will just show the information that's on that grid for me. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. One of the things I want to just remind you of, and I'm sure everybody here knows now how important this is taking a backup, but also taking a backup without additional files and folders as a time measure, and because it's really not needed to have those backed up in the backup that you do within the system. It's got to do with those additional tick boxes, and I'll show you in a second. Scheduler, I will briefly show you how and where Scheduler is and what you can do with it, how you can schedule tasks within that, and that will then run at whenever you set them to run. And I just want to remind everybody that emailing of documentation like P60s, P45s, and of course payslips is real, and most people are doing it, but it is a huge time and money saver, and it is available on those areas. So taking a backup in our admin area here, we've got in utilities, we've got backup. When backup comes up, it represents all the companies that we have, well, as the user I'm logged in, have access to. I can just do one company at a time, but what I really want to mention is this: include additional files and folders. That is really not needed when you do a backup nowadays, because those files and folders are not going to go anywhere if something goes wrong with the data, because they're PDF files and spool files and email files, so they're not going to go anywhere, and therefore it's not needed. So it makes the backup much quicker. It also makes the backup smaller, so much easier if there is an issue to restore it, or secondly, or to pass it on to, let's say, to us if we need to look at the data or something like that. I'm not going to run it now, but the whole point is if I start here, it will run through the backup and it will create a backup in normal area where I want it to be created from. At the same time, here in administration, we've got scheduling, we've got messaging shutdown, but we've got task scheduler here. And I want to mention the task scheduler functionality. You will notice I've set up a couple of tasks in there. Very easy to set a task up. You create a new task. You set the type of task it is you want to do. So I can set up a UDS to run on company Z at a specific date, time, or it can be included in a chain. So if I include it in a chain here, it means that I can set a bunch of items up to include in a chain, and then I can set one chain of events off to run at a certain time. So I'm not going to do that on this one now. Let's just go. I want you to run once on a specific date. Let's say on Saturday morning at 7 o'clock when no one is working. I'll do a shutdown with messages for a minute. I just want to do company Z. And do I want to do any of this information here? And then I can save it or not. And it would then sit here in my task, and it would run at the specified time that I specified for it to run, so out of hours. And as you can see, a lot of these things, there's a backup scheduled out of hours, there's a purchase ledger period, and there's a rebuild periods in nominal that's been scheduled, but I can also now set up a new chain of events that will run through them. So a useful area to use to get people out, to run UDSs, to run period ends, etc. at certain times, if that functionality is for you. And I'm not going to show you how to email payslips, but when you do run a payslips routine and you do have email payslips, you get to obviously run the email status. But here you've got your email box, so that is on, and then those employees you've selected to have email payslips will have email payslips, email P45s, and email P60s when the year is up, sent to them through the email system. It's very easy to set up. There's some email admin in here where you can set up your designs, your covers, that generate the welcome emails if you're not using the functionality yet. It generates the password emails for your employees, and then then that's all set up and you can email them this information. So it's a good time saver and definitely a money saver if you can use that functionality. Next, I'm going to remind you of the retrospective reporting in debtors and creditors, and where you run them. And I'm going to run through a reminder of the open period accounting calendar. Now, if you don't use open period accounting, it's just the ability to post dates driven to your system and to have several periods open at the same time, nominal going forward, and the ability to control and close the periods that you have dealt with, for no one to be able to post anything to it, for example. Then I'm going to show you a little bit of functionality you might have noticed as the publisher popped up. This is actually just a small utility we have developed for the system, but it's all about saving your PDF or Excel file, sorry, to a specific location. And you would have seen that little red writing appear on the publisher, which shows that is active, and I'll show you what that means in a second. And then lastly, a bit of rectifying allocations, just a reminder of how that works and what we do with it. So let's have a quick look at the retrospective debtors and creditors reporting. So within our sales ledger, in our debtors report, we've got the retrospective debtors. And really all it means is, when do I want to see and produce the report? Now, well, it's going to give me the date my system is on. That's where I'm at. But let's say I really wanted to run this for the 31st of December 2023. If I say OK to that, and I say screen to that, it will then produce my retrospective report as it stood on the 31st of December 2023. Obviously in a format that we can help you with if you need to change that, but it gives you the reporting. Exactly on the purchasing side, we've got our retrospective creditors report, which does exactly the same thing. Can go back to a period in time I need to run it for. I might have forgotten, and run it for that period in time, and you will see it give you the information as at that date. Reminder of the open period accounting calendar. So within our nominal area, within our maintenance, within our utilities, we've got a financial calendar. The financial calendar, because I use open period accounting, represents all the modules that's linked and that I can post to, that's open, that's linked to my nominal. I've got things like sales purchase, my fixed assets, stock, as well as payroll in here. And as you can see, if I look at my calendar here, all these periods from the 1st of January has been blocked. My year is January to December. I'm on period 10 at the moment, period 11 at the moment. Period 10 is all blocked. This is open here. Of course, if I run a nominal or sales or purchase period and at this point in time, then that would update that for me. So how does that work? Let's quickly run a end of period in my sales. Date is picking up my system date. It knows it's 30 days since the last one, so I know that's right. And say OK to that. And as I've run that period, and now in my nominal, although the period is still showing as open, you would have noticed I didn't tick the box on to say to block the period to posting to nominal, so it hasn't blocked for me. When I run my nominal period end, it will block all the nominal modules postings to nominal for that period, therefore closing it off for me effectively. If I run the purchase period end, you'll see the same idea. 30 days, I'm going to say block purchase postings to nominal for that month, say yes to that. It'll do that posting for me, and I'm kind of expecting now to see my purchase period blocked. So once I run those periods, I can block them for posting for purchase or for sales long before I close my nominal period, which blocks them for me anyway. But this is just one way to control your periods that you can open. You can come in here, you can actually open a period in here if you've got that access, reopen the period or block it or close. Periods are closed when you do a year end on your data. So if I look at 2023, for example, you'll see everything is closed. You'll notice all your calendars as well as calendars into the future that you can post to effectively, because they will all be open periods. Publishing a PDF file to Excel. Let's just, let's open the reports and click on an audit trail and say okay to that. If with our little utility we've developed, this red writing appears. What does that mean? If I go to the File tab and I have a PDF document, have you noticed the location has set to C drive Pegasus? If I save that now, next time I come into this location, it's going to go to C drive Pegasus again. As you know, on a standard system, let's run a different report so I can show you what I mean. If I go to File, it puts the data, the location here in some area in the data file and Z in a PDF folder, and that's where it defaults to. I can change it, I can overwrite it in a standard system, but next time I come into this report, it does exactly the same thing. How do I change this though? I can come in here, I can go and say, I'm just going to go to this PC. Let's go to C drive and stick it in Pegasus, bespoke like that, because we can remember the path, and give it a name and publish that report. The idea is next time I come into the report and I select that, it's going to remember that path for me. It does exactly the same if I select Excel. So hold on, let me just copy that for a second, put the Excel report in again. You can see here it puts the long data path in where it finds it, and there's an export XLS file that it puts it in. I'm just going to override that with the new location where I quickly stuck that in. I'm going to publish that. And now next time I come and run these reports, that location will be remembered for me, and it would automatically suggest the reports be run there. Why is this important? It's important because you can set each user sets that location where they print those reports to for themselves. Of course, if they receive, if you accept the default, that doesn't matter. It will always go there. But once you overwrite it, it will remember for you. But it would also remember that for each user, for each company combination they are logged into. So if you've got 5 companies, it would remember a different location for the same report in each company effectively. So just to show you what I mean, again, come back into my income, say okay to that, select my file, and what you notice is it's defaulted back to the last location I put in. And if I click on export, it's done the same. Of course, if I overwrite that location this time and save it, next time I come into it, it would be different. And then the last thing on that screen was our rectify allocations. Again, I'm sure most of you kind of know now what this is. In our action button, we've got rectify allocations here at the bottom. And it allows me to pick up any allocations I might want to unallocate. I don't know if there's going to be anything. No, let's just select something here. No. Yeah, we'll find something in there. Rectify allocations, range, 20 in there. See if that works. No. Sorry guys, I seem to have missed all my allocation or mislaid them. I can't actually show you how that works at this point in time. I can go and allocate something quickly, I suppose. Must be 0. What's it? 3988. I'm not going to. So sorry about that. But you come into the action button, select rectify allocation, the screen comes up. If it's an allocation you've done today, like you might have, like I should have, then it would be today's, it gives you next, it gives you a list of the allocations. If you find, let's say it's a payment that you want to unallocate, you double click the payment and it would automatically highlight and select all the items that was allocated against. You can do two things on that screen. You can then select to unallocate and move forward with that. But you can also remove one of the transactions, like if it was totally an incorrect receipt that should never have been on the cash book, for example, you can remove it from there. Doesn't work with foreign currency properly, but you know, there you go. So the allocations routine in that way works. And I'm really sorry I couldn't show that off properly. Next, I'm going to stop talking for a second and I'm going to show you a video I recorded a couple of years ago now. So excuse what I sound like, but it's about importing into Opera, and it really is not groundbreaking, but it does show you the capabilities and the possibilities of importing using the standard functionality in Opera. Of course, we have written other importing routines for timesheets, for example. If you want to link to a time and attendance system without having to change the formatting of how it comes out of that system, then that would be a go. This is really basic importing, but you'll see a whole host of stuff that could be imported. So good luck.
Thank you for joining us on our presentation on how to save time, minimize errors, and be more efficient by using the import functionality in Pegasus Opera 3. Data can be imported from third-party accounting systems or applications. Today I'm going to import payroll timesheets. These import files could be manually created in a template or exported from another system. Here we are looking at the payment screen for the current payroll period in Opera 3 with no existing transactions. When you select the Import Wizard command in the Import folder, the application runs a wizard to control the import process. This will guide you through the steps you need to take and the information you must enter to import your data. As you can see from the list, the Pegasus Opera 3 import allows several areas of import into the system. We will choose Payroll Timesheets and pick up the file to import. Once the process is completed, the imported transactions can be seen in the payment screen for the current pay period, ready to be calculated. In the same way, I've already imported nominal journals and sales transactions. The journals can now be checked and posted, and the sales transactions can be analyzed within Opera 3. So, as you can see from these imports, they will save time in rekeying, minimize human error, and maximize productivity. Thank you for watching.
So there you go. That was just a quick overview of the importing side. If you want to use that, talk to me. We can give you the templates that you just have to complete really to pick up in that space, depending on which one of the imports you want to use. I want to mention people profiles. In connection with people profiles, I want to talk about PIR. And PIR is Purchase Invoice Register, and it's a very easy way to control and authorize purchase payments to your suppliers even before they hit the purchase account. So before they become available to be part of the payment run, there is a process you can put in place to post and authorize those payments for someone who needs to do that. So how do we access those areas? So people profiles, well, the people profiles is an administration maintenance people profiles. We can set up several people profiles here, and this is not users of the system, but these might be managers and might be users of the system, but might be people that we want to authorize certain information. It sets out whether they're an employee, are they project leader, and for some reason there's remnants of being a subcontractor within the system here. But it means that you can set another set of contacts up effectively within the system that you can then use to allocate information to. And we'll see that in a second. So these are people profiles that is separate to your user profiles. Now I talked about PIR, and what is that? So PIR here within our purchase area, we've got something we call PIR, Purchase Invoice Register. It's got a processing when you open it, and it really shows me, sorry about the words there, it shows me any accounts and all my purchase accounts, and because I have a setting that says all invoices must be authorized, I then want to see information come in this in here when I post an invoice for authorization. That invoice that's been sitting there is an invoice I posted a couple of days ago for 1,200 quid, but it's not part of my current balance yet because it's not been authorized or it's not been posted there. So if I open my purchase invoice, supply, purchase invoice, purchase orders here, and I go to this and I'm going to post an invoice very quickly. Let's call that test invoice 123. Let's call it 1,200 and say okay to that. It asks if I want to create it from a purchase order, from a delivery, or it's just new. I'm going to do it from a delivery because I had a delivery that I had done here. And as you can see there, there's a delivery that has been done. I'm going to tick that on. I'm going to use that delivery to automatically create my invoice. That's been ticked on. I'm going to say okay to that. And I'm going to post that invoice. Come back to my PIR and just do a bit of a refresh there. You'll notice that invoice has appeared in my list, and you would notice at the same time that the outstanding invoices, or all of them, those, there's not a new invoice, there's no new invoices on there. So how do I get those invoices in there? Because of how I've set the system, I can come into my action button in PIR, bearing in mind those people who needs to have access to this will have access. You can click on the authorize functionality. It will run through and it will find what it needs to find for you, what's authorized, what's not authorized. As you can see, I'm on this A and B circuits. There are two invoices that's not in authorized. That's right, I can see them there. Let's select those two and authorize them. Let's say okay to that. And now it's been authorized, but it still hasn't hit my account. Now I can come and I can post them. And there I've got a problem because, you know, I've closed the nominal period for posting when I posted it. So now it's not going to allow me to post, but of course I can open that period. Suppose it's a good point to show you how that works. Save that, say okay to that. Come back into my PIR, go post, say okay to that. It will pick up the two invoices for posting. I'm going to tick them all on, say okay to that. And you'll notice the information immediately, the current balance is updated. Those two invoices have now appeared here at the bottom. And when I do a payment run based on the due dates of that, that information will now be included in my payment run. So that's the PIR, and it's a really good functionality to use within the system that is standard. And then MTD VAT Center, if you use this, just a kind reminder that every 18 months, HMRC will tell you the authorization has failed, that you need to action it, and you need to reauthorize the information that you have. So that's standard. Please don't have a fright when that pops up when you do any of your VAT information within Opera. Just to mention, within the VAT area, we've got the VAT center there, but we also have VAT processing and VAT reports there, where you can access the same information as you do through the VAT center, and it will, again, give you the right information. Of course, the VAT center is there, and you will get this authorization message once every 18 months that you have to reauthorize your information. from. It will take you through to HMRC, and as you can see, this is what I mentioned before, the internal thing. So it allows you here to go through and to continue to sign into your service and to authorize your software. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to mention, let's pop back to here, is salary sacrifice. I was going to show you a video of it, but I don't think it's necessary. I just want to mention that you can set it up value-based salary sacrifice payments for your employees who agree to give up some of their cash or contractual cash to pay in return for non-cash benefits. Value-based salary sacrifices can be set up for pension contribution or for other types of contribution, for example, childcare vouchers or the Cycle to Work scheme. So it's just a way that you can get your employees to pay a bit less tax because they are sacrificing some of their money towards these schemes that is being used. Pension lately is probably the most used one in that. When you get the presentation, I will make sure there's a link to, you can watch a video on the salary sacrifice. It's about 10 minutes long, so I didn't want to play it now. I think that is probably all the tips, things that I have for you. But I think the most important three tips are the next ones. I want to remind you that on the Oasis website, we've got a news channel. The news channel is updated monthly with videos, information, articles, quizzes, whatever you want. There is categories on the side. You can look at the webinars and whatever I post on there. The webinars I run like today appears on the website within a couple of days of us hosting it. I also want to remind you on the customer zone on our website, that's where you can log a support call. There's some news pages. You can access the news that I just mentioned, but you can also access release information of Pegasus, look at the latest events we're running and some booking forms that you can find. And lastly, the YouTube channel, Software from Oasis. Again, can access a whole host of information, videos, funny videos, silly videos, all kinds of stuff on there about the product, about us, and what you can get. So I want to thank you for listening. And now if there are anybody who's got any questions about any of what we've seen, that would be great. If I don't have anything, then I want to remind you of these monthly webinars, but more importantly, next month, it's a week earlier because it's always the last Thursday, but I don't think anybody is going to want to do this on the 27th of December. So on the 19th of December, I've got the big Oasis Christmas quiz for 2024 with some huge prizes, well, wine to win, right in time for New Year's. So I want to ask anybody if you guys want to join us for that. That would be good. It shouldn't be as long as today's was. So thank you for joining. And if there is no other questions, then I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you.